And we are back. Jason Marlow, how's it going?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Trapped in my house, but it's okay.
All things considered, we're still quarantining for the most part. Most of us should be quarantining, but we're going to make it through it.
Right now. What the news today with over 9,000 new cases.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. So you guys be safe out there. But hey, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We are the Hillsborough County Young Democrats. This is Jason Marlow. My name is Quentin Torbert. And Jason wrote another amazing article. It's kind of like part two to the COVID article that you wrote at the beginning.
Consider it the sequel. This is, so if the first one was Rocky and Apollo tie, this is now Rocky gets the upset win. I guess this is definitely the sequel. He's sad. Burgess Meredith dies. It's very complicated. Rocky 2, underrated sequel.
I agree. But yeah, this is another great article, and so I'm excited so we get this one out and have your thoughts about it. And you actually go in the very first paragraph. You make it very clear. You started with, my gut tells me that most people will so hurriedly attempt to return to normalcy that our COVID numbers may surge and subsequently things may not be back to normal for some time. And that's actually what you put in your piece when you wrote it in May 2020. And how are you feeling now?
I know it's ghost, but I said I told you so. I told you so.
Yeah.
I mean, I will admit, I perhaps a guy even went out more than I should have over the last couple weeks and months. But what I find so funny is how everything stems from the leadership, right? And DeSantis, and we'll talk about this throughout this piece, frankly, has been AWOL on anything COVID related. He has just been completely absent in terms of having a plan, getting through it in a way that makes sense for Floridians. What we have now is we're changing laws in such a fluid way that people are not able to keep up. Tom DeGeorge, who's an owner of the Crowbar here in Ybor, made a post on Facebook and Instagram that I believe has gone viral since, basically about how the leadership has, killed his business. He owns a bar. He was trying to operate responsibly while perhaps other business owners weren't. But because both the enforcement and the leadership has been haphazard at best, as we all know, DeSantis has closed bars again effective yesterday. Yeah. So I think the preeminent issue that we've had is that in this state and in several other southwestern states, Arizona and Texas come to example, all three states with Republican governors, there was a rush to celebrate early. Ron DeSantis took a victory lap early, said we had basically defeated the virus, mission accomplished, fly the banner across the aircraft carrier. And now here we are, we rush back to reopening.
Now the numbers are tripling.
And where have we find ourselves? We find ourselves having near consecutive days with record cases. I believe we've basically, gone from one day to the next of the next 4 days with almost record cases. I mentioned today, I believe the number being over 9,000 new cases plus. Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. And on a local level, that takes us sort of to the EPG and sort of how they've been interacting with things. I roundly criticized them before, and I'm going to do so again. Melissa Snively has become basically like the conservative vanguard on the Hillsborough EPG, and we have a complete political schism. I mean, fortunately, Les Miller has come along on a lot of the other votes lately, but by and large, I think I am deeply frustrated with the idea that we are a county with 80,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. That's a Doak Campbell Stadium. That's a Ben Hill Griffith Stadium of just Democrats. More Democrats than Republicans in Hillsborough County, but the EPG is not in our favor. And I think one of the things that needs to be addressed is City of Tampa, 400,000 people. Temple Terrace and Plant City, dwarfed by that in comparison significantly, has one vote. Temple Terrace and Plant City, also one vote each. That's nonsensical. I really think the City of Tampa deserves to have a second vote on the EPG, and I would really highly recommend Councilman Goods for that position because he's someone whose district straddles both downtown Tampa and East Tampa and Sulphur Springs. So you have someone whose district covers both.
He also has trust, too. He used to be a police officer, and he built his platform on that. He has a lot of trust with the common people in his district and really all over Tampa.
Yeah, I really think he would be a natural fit for the EPG. And I think it's imperative. I know Councilman Vieira and a number of the other councilmen support this measure. It's time for the City of Tampa to have a member on the EPG.
Gotcha. I love this because I would imagine the common person doesn't know anything or know very little about the EPG. So I'm glad we're having this this follow-up conversation to the last article to discuss EPG.
Well, the EPG has been very controversial because you have folks from the left and right, frankly, who are upset about the brief curfew. You have folks from the right who have now supremely vilified Mayor Castor and Commissioner Overman for their support of mask wearing, which actually beautifully segues us into our next topic. Shame on the Hillsborough County Young Republicans. I'm saying it. It's abhorrent to me that they have basically decried Commissioner Overman and Mayor Castor as authoritarian for supporting mask use and measures to support public health and safety. I think it's genuinely ludicrous and embarrassing that their idea of bringing an elected official on is Representative Anthony Sabatini, who is most famously for, wearing blackface and not apologizing for it, dressing up as a Mexican immigrant in a means of being, I guess, quote unquote humorous and not apologizing for it, threatening protesters via Twitter with a picture of an assault rifle, and most recently calling people who support mask wearing Nazis. So that's the guy that the Tampa Bay Young Republicans believes is fit to, discuss, politics and ideology. And it speaks to, the absurdity of that whole, of our counterparts. I am beyond disgusted that that's the kind of person they would want to give that him and Roger Stone, might I add, being the two people they have most recently seen fit to lend a platform. Yeah, so convicted criminal and the most disgraced member of the state house. These are the two people that the Tampa Bay Young Republicans want to give a platform to. So I think that speaks volumes about our counterparts.
I wouldn't even say like counterparts. I'm glad that we're a part of an organization who's progressive and moving forward. Obviously with the Hillsborough County Young Democrats, and so definitely with the new wave of new leadership that was just elected in. And congratulations to you again for being reelected. I'm so happy to see what you guys do over the next year. And so, yeah.
And we're gonna miss you, Quinn. You are an integral part of what we've done. I'm glad you're sticking around, but
sticking around. You'll still see me. You probably won't even notice the difference that I won't be on the board. I'll still be around, but I just won't have like a formal title. That's more than enough for me. Like I can kind of focus on working with another political candidate who's running in District 3 and really just some other things that got cooking. So it's been a fun ride, but time to move on. Yeah.
All right. So that moves us on to basically our next topic, which is just talking about Ron DeSantis in general. He has been incapable of handling almost any part of this crisis. He's gone from blaming the press, shaming a former data scientist, blaming phone.
Really tough. Really tough. I watched a couple of interviews or interviews about her, the data scientist. I can't remember her name now, but I guess they're calling her, a whistleblower now, where she was doing the best of her ability, and then mysteriously she was let go from her job when she started to flag some inconsistencies that were happening. Yeah,
and now, to my understanding, the Daily Mail has published a hit piece about her. Apparently, when she was at Florida State, she had an affair with a student when she was, I guess, an associate professor. What? It's pretty wild. I have no doubt that DeSantis camp may have something behind that piece hitting a British tabloid. But that has no bearing to what you said, which is more important, the fact that she found inconsistencies in the data. Simply because that person might have a life fitting of a tabloid scandal does not necessarily mean that their findings are inaccurate. And I am incredibly concerned about the lack of transparency. We've read that there's been a fudging of the numbers by the governor in regards to the number of folks who are in ICU. As you mentioned, we have the scandal with Ms. Jones in relation to whether or not there had been some massaging of the numbers there. Mm-hmm. And like I said, DeSantis has, whether it was the unemployment issue, whether it was handling the crisis in its inception, and whether it's handling the crisis now, DeSantis has failed at every single stage of the game. And this is a guy who wanted apologies from the press a couple weeks ago, for how come he wasn't getting the kind of positive press that Andrew Cuomo was. Does he want that kind of positive press now? If he's not ready to lead, might I suggest, as I say in the article, a chair is available for him at Fox News, I'm sure. And he can go perhaps somewhere where he's more comfortable. But, leaders lead, and all he's done is follow, Trump's sad example. And the state is in a dangerous place because of it. And it bothers me that this is the guy who succeeded Rick Scott, a gentleman who set the bar for Florida leadership at ankle height, and somehow Ron DeSantis can't seem to find a way to clear that bar. That's remarkable. I mean, like, we already have low expectations, and you can't find a way to exceed them. Really, just tremendously embarrassing. We have a bottom 5 governor in the United States.
This is crazy. How does he move forward? He's definitely been, I've seen a couple of interviews he's done with the media when I don't think he still does the daily briefings anymore for COVID, but during like the height of COVID over a month ago, he was very, very combative. And it was very reminiscent of Donald Trump, which obviously Donald Trump, he's on an entirely different level with his combativeness. But
he clearly seeks to emulate Trump in every way. And it's grossly irresponsible. You know, like, we are a state of 20 plus million people. A lot of those people live in poverty and very close to the margins. These are folks that really desperately need someone to give sound advice, like on something like mask wearing, like helping make mask wearing mandatory in some way or possible, or at least encouraging municipalities to do so. You know, he has just been so AWOL and absentee when people have needed him. And it concerns me. And we got another 2 years of this joker at least. So
why, kind of deviating a little bit, why is wearing a mask a political issue? I think
for the life of me, I can't understand. You know, people are taking it as it's an infringement on their freedom. I would suggest not wearing a mask is actually an infringement on the freedom of everybody else. You know, I know a lot of people who have immunocompromisations or love folks who do live with them. And, you know, I think of it like this, you know, if you're hanging out somewhere and you cough or talk on them and some droplets get on them, and then, you know, their son or daughter or friend or spouse, you know, touches, you know, that shirt or whatever, now they could potentially, you know, that is a possibility. I mean,
deadly for some people.
You know, is it slim? Yes, but it's a possibility. And we should be doing everything we can to be preserving public health and safety. And I feel like it's become, honestly, a really sad statement about where we are as a society in terms of individualism equaling selfishness. You know, liberty to do stuff the way you want to do them does not supersede other people's rights to live their lives healthily and in peace. And it really, it really scares me that we have folks who think their freedoms are more significant than, you know, the kid who's going through cancer, or, you know, person who has
citizens who are the most vulnerable. Like, we have to protect those people who are the most vulnerable by something as simple as wearing a mask.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, it's like for the evangelical community to not support this. You know, I mean, I'm not a person of faith, but like, what happened to being a shepherd of your flock and taking care of the people around you, caring about the others, you know, around you in your community? I feel like, you know, doing the bare minimum to just protect the people around you. And this is such a small ask. And like, honestly, it's been, I would say, maybe the most depressing part of this entire episode has been watching people just abjectly refuse to follow either science or logic out of I mean, I can only see it as a selfishness. I can't interpret it as anything else, because ultimately you're making the personal choice to do something that puts someone else at risk.
And that's scary. That's really sad. And we also do encourage people to wear a mask when they're protesting. How do you feel about people when they're protesting and wearing their mask?
I mean, listen, I'm going to say I have been pleased to see that there have been some studies that have been released that say that the increase in COVID is not necessarily related to the protesting, but actually more related to far more people gathering indoors in restaurants and bars and workplaces while not wearing masks, not using PPE, not washing their hands, not sanitizing. That seems to be far more the impetus for the rise in COVID cases we're seeing than simply protesting. By and large, in the 2 protests I've been able to personally participate in, I would say mask use was almost ubiquitous.
That's like the bare minimum, and I completely agree with you as well. I, like you, I went to a protest about 2 weeks ago, and for the most part, majority of people were wearing masks, and you see people sharing their mask or giving out masks or giving out face covering. And so right now we live in this, it's such a tense political environment, especially being a Black man, and looking at the protests. And so I had the option of, I could sit at home, but like I felt driven. I had to get out. I had to go protest. And so just like you just said, if you're going to go protest, you have to be as safe as possible, wear as much covering as possible. So
Yeah, and I think part of like being quote unquote woke and going to the protests means not just going to the protests, but also finding other ways to support local people of color, our communities of color and businesses of color. That means specifically looking to see how you can make sure you're going out and patronizing businesses owned by, people of color, making sure you're, not talking over their voices, amplifying their voices. Like one of the things that we need to be doing at Hillsborough County Young Democrats that I think we're really striving to do is give more voices to people, good people like you, Quentin. And we need folks to be, and this includes myself, taking a step back and allowing folks of color to tell their stories, tell their narratives, listen to them, and find ways to help them. That's, I think, a really important part of how we go forward. It's making sure that we're not talking over folks.
I love that. That's beautiful.
I mean, it's part of something we need to do. I'm not good at it. I interrupt like a son of a bitch. I talk too much. But we find ways to listen to each other more. We need to find ways to amplify voices that we haven't been listening to enough. And I think that's part of what the whole protest movement has been about. And that sort of takes me, lastly to, I guess, sort of our final point, which is, what are we going to do?
What happens next?
Yeah. As it stands here, I don't have an answer, and I wish I did. We're told we can't really return to normal until we have a vaccine. We're told that could be a year away. I've been hearing that there will be no return to stay at home. Now, I have 3 friends who have lost their fathers to
that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it's scary to me in relationship to what we talked about earlier with the mask you wearing. It's like, why are we being so selfish, man? Like people are dying. These are people we know, or they're the people that we know of that should matter to us, even if we didn't know them, even if they were, just a name on a newspaper or in an obituary. Who cares? We should care.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it hurts. It hurts because I want to think we're bigger than this and we're better than that. And then I see the videos of folks at the Palm Beach County Commission, where I know the number of those folks who sit on the county commission, and listening to them sit up there, listening to people screaming about 5G and Bill Gates and vaccines and how masks are infringing on their freedoms and how they're defying the laws of God by making people wear masks. Like, yeah, I mean, it really scares me and saddens me because I know that means more people are going to die.
Yeah, unfortunately, the most vulnerable will die, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I really hope, my hope, all right, is that we learn something from this and that this moment leads to a movement in public policy, that we go from pandemic to response in a way that's real and meaningful. And that starts with electing Joe Biden in November and electing local Democrats wherever we can. That's where it starts. But then it goes towards then holding those newly elected leaders accountable to making sure that we put forth a system of government that actually, puts people over profit.
I love that. That's true. That's really the only way to move forward. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see change, but we'll just have to hold out and see. A couple of weeks from now, we need to do a follow-up to see kind of what's happened with the pandemic and where we.
Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about this for a long time. I know our next piece will be about my recent experience just several days ago about finally getting my COVID test and the Kafka-esque nightmare that getting that was. But something tells me this is going to be something we're going to be talking about, whether it's this or the economic fallout resulting because of it. I don't know if anything else, the election is going to effectively hinge on the COVID epidemic, the resulting economic fallout, and a series of, let's say criminal justice reform, social justice movements. These seem to be the 3 hinges on which our election in November is going to run. And it seems to be going in our favor, judging by PBS Marist poll released just yesterday, showing Donald Trump's disapproval at the highest percentage it has ever been, a record 58%.
Yes. So maybe we'll see some changes. I'm excited to stay tuned. It's going to be exciting no matter what.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for your time, Quentin. I'm happy to be here, and
Anytime, and thank you guys.
hopefully we're not in quarantine much longer, buddy.
We'll get through it. But hey, guys, thank you so much for watching this. Be sure to follow us online at www.hillsyoungdims.com or follow us on all social media platforms at hillsyoungdims.com. Again, I'm Quentin Torbert. This is Jason Marlow. We'll see you guys next time.
Everybody.
Bye.